Fougère, les nouveaux parfums pourront barnetnaughton et Wilson. Parce que la vie est faite pour être appréciée.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today is going to be another one of my quickie, impromptu, pretty much unedited videos that I do from time to time in order to give a little bit of a different style, POV style as they say, and kind of gets me a video out there for you guys, a little bit less work for me. And I like the fact that these are just individual fragrance reviews, not clicky bait top 10 type stuff. So let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. So the series here that I've been doing sometimes is called Modern Classics, and this is a fragrance that we're going to put in that category, but I'm stretching the definition a little bit because the fragrance was actually first released way back in 1882. However, the version I have before me here today was re-released and reissued really in 2010 with a new perfumer and presumably a pretty different formula to how it originally smelled. So we've got the famous Fougere Royale from the house of HOUBIGANT. Apparently, I think this is true, the original Fougere fragrance. Before we get into the details of the scent itself, which I think is a great niche fragrance, modern classic, totally, a bit of an old school smell, but I think it's not dated and very reasonably priced, I think, for a top quality niche fragrance with a sensational bottle. Let's get into, as I sometimes do with these type of POV videos, a bit of a look at the actual house, the history of the house, a brief history of the house, the famous French house of HOUBIGANT. So this fragrance house was launched way back in the 18th century in the year 1775. And the founder was Jean-Francois HOUBIGANT of Grasse, the famous perfumery region in Paris, and he lived between 1752 and 1807. The brand originally were purveyors of gloves, perfumes and bridal bouquets. They had a shop in Paris at 19 Rue de Faubourg, Saint-Honor, which is of course the same street that the famous Hermès has its headquarters in. And over the centuries, it says online that the house of HOUBIGANT became perfumer to the royal courts of Europe, including Napoleon, famously fond of his fragrances. I mean, he seems to have had quite a few fragrance houses linked to him. Napoleon III, I wonder, where was Napoleon II? You hear about Napoleon and Napoleon III. Anyway, Alexander III of Russia and the lovely Queen Victoria of England. Right, now, the next big event really that is worth mentioning is the launch of this fragrance in 1882, Fougere Royale, the first fougere, meaning fern-like perfume that was ever made. And this was very much a new fragrance family. So the smell of a fern, I mean, ferns, if they have a smell, it's not really very remarkable or noticeable. So it was really an idea that it encapsulated the essence of how one might imagine a fern smelled, or a little bit of a forest-like green smell. I've never quite understood exactly where this name came from or how appropriate it really is. And this was a hugely important fragrance. I think it was the first fragrance, apparently, that has what they would call now a synthetic ingredient. They'd somehow extracted a chemical from the tonka bean known as coumarin, which is a key ingredient in many fragrances, and utilizing that ingredient and enabled them to create this very distinctive at the time type of smell, which we tend to associate now with masculine perfumery, although coumarin, the note I think derived from tonka bean, is of course very ubiquitous in all kinds of perfumes for men and women today. So very interesting fragrance. I think it's now time to talk about the scent itself. Okay, so stuff with, well, the house, let's just finish up on the house. Blah blah, they went on to sort of do quite well, isolating these molecules, and the tonka bean thing is mentioned. In they had 1912 Quelques Fleurs, a female fragrance, and a very floral scent. Apparently, I've never tried that one. Now, the big one that I actually rather like and enjoy is the 1985 release Duc de Vervins, and there was a flanker Duc de Vervins à l'extrême, which again is a classic fougere, but has a bit of an 80s kind of smell, bit like Drakkar Noir, sort of rich man's Drakkar Noir. But that you can get for sort of 50 quid. Fougere Royale you can get for sort of just over the £100 mark online here in the UK, and probably roughly equivalent prices depending where you are in the world, but yeah, not as expensive as a Creed or anything like that. So great value for a niche fragrance, and the bottle design is absolutely superb. And here we talk about the reissued version. So you can find online numerous adverts for the old Fougere Royale from the early, or perhaps even sort of towards the mid 20th century. I'm not sure at what time the fragrance itself became discontinued in its original form, but I'm pretty sure there was a period when you couldn't get it. By the way, guys, if you are enjoying this video, I'm going to do a follow-up exclusively on my Patreon group about Cologne Intense, also from the same house, Houbigant. So follow the link in the description, just $2 a month, and you can sign up there where you get an extra video from me every week. And I'm going to do, I think Cologne Intense, not everyone may agree, also falls into the category of modern classic. Let's continue with Fougere Royale. Why should you like this? Why should you be interested in it? It's really, really a beautiful classic exemplifier of this genre of fragrance. If you like things like Invasion Barbare by MDCI Parfum, that's another one of the absolute top choices in this category. Beau de Jour by Tom Ford perhaps would be another one you might mention in the same breath. I think some people regard Roger Parfum's Scandal as a fougere, although others compare it very strongly, and I think justifiably so, to Eau Sauvage from Dior, perhaps in its old glorious vintage formula, and that was a citrus aromatic. So these designations never tell you a great deal. Anyhow, for the classic gentlemanly fougere type fragrance, this is one you have to really try, I think, anyone who's remotely interested in that style. Let's talk about the note listing for Fougere Royale then, and we'll list them for you here. Top notes, then you've got lavender and so-called green notes, also chamomile and bergamot. In the mid you've got geranium, carnation and cinnamon, rose and lilac, and the base notes are oak moss, clary sage, patchouli, tonka bean and amber. So it's a classical fougere type structure. The lavender is going to always be there, and the tonka bean is pretty much compulsory. Although not all fougères actually list all of these ingredients. For example, our own Gravitas Pour Homme does not have a listed note of tonka. Undoubtedly, I think that there is some coumarin in it. I don't know the chemical formula, but perfumer John Stephen would undoubtedly have used some tonka, but it's perhaps not as prevalent in the scent as it is in other fougères. You'll typically open with a green bitter type opening, and some citruses will very normally be present, but not always as prominent as in some. For example, Scandal, quite prominent citrus opening. Not so much here, but it's got a very nice, comforting, warming, masculine, gentlemanly aura, and that's what's so beautiful about it. It kind of it really is a great go-to as an all-rounder that you could wear to the office. You could wear it on a night out too. It perhaps isn't mega sexy or seductive. It's certainly not packed with sweetness, but the beautiful combination of the green bitter citrusy opening, lovely floral notes. Often you'll find it's not a compulsory note in a fougere, but this note of geranium is often there. Things like carnation. You've got this slightly dandified gentleman with the kind of thing you would spray on your hanky and all that kind of stuff. Some elements of that kind of feel are in there. But with this one, you get this very kind of warming, comforting dry down, particularly with a feeling of there being quite a bit of patchouli and tonka in the base. Amber is a difficult accord to pin down. It's not an extract of actual amber rock from the rocks where amber forms, the kind of reddish rock-like material. Or do they mean ambergris? Because sometimes people mention that as it's not a prominent ambergris fragrance in the way that some Creed fragrances have a noticeable ambergris note. But what we get overall is a beautifully well balanced, quite dry, not very sweet. So for example, Invasion Barbare has quite a bit of vanillic sweetness and spiciness in it. This apparently Houbigant's Fougere Royale does have cinnamon, but it's not a very, very spicy fragrance, and certainly not a sweet one. Our own Gravitas Pour Homme over there has a vanilla note in the base. This doesn't have so much of that. It's a classical example of a fougere fragrance, but unlike Duc de Vervon's L'Extrême, or Duc de Vervon's the original from the same house, which smell very similar to each other, this does not have that old school kind of 80s feel. The perfumer for this one, interestingly enough, was Rodrigo Flores Roux, the head perfumer at Givaudan, one of the big places where fragrances are made for many companies. And he also did Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford, which is kind of their take really on 4711, the famous rather weak citrus aromatic eau de cologne. So he knows his classic styles, and with this one he's done a fantastic job. I know our perfumer on Gravitas Pour Homme, John Stephen, was of the opinion that you can't really call this the true Fougere Royale because the limit on oak moss and some other ingredients makes it impossible to recreate that. There is oak moss in this though, but probably in a low amount, which is within the laws permitted by current petty-fogging bureaucrats. But you know what? Whatever compromises had to be made, it's come out as an absolutely beautiful, classic, gentlemanly fragrance. The performance to me is medium to good, but not outrageously strong. If you need beast mode, you may be disappointed. The fantastic bottle, the gentlemanly aura, and the suitability for all occasions make it an absolutely classic fragrance that any fan of old school, but not dated smelling masculine scents needs to check out. You can wear this pretty much year round. It will be perfectly suited for springtime and autumn, the sort of in between parts of the year. A little bit maybe too much clout for a really hot summer's day, you may feel, but in the evening no problem. And I think there's just about enough going on there for the winter time too. It has a slightly formal kind of air, so I think it perhaps would feel a little bit odd if you like to wear a baseball cap and sneakers or trainers, but far be it from me to tell you what you should do. Ladies can of course wear this if they like, but it will be the more masculine mood that they're in that day, or in touch with their masculine side if you like, when they'd want to pick this one. So a superb all-round fragrance, amazing value. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Have you tried Fougere Royale? And if not, why on earth not? I'll finish with my new catchphrase. Let me know what you think of it. Sometimes life stinks, but we can always smell good. Guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Bye-bye.
Bon Viveur by Naughton and Wilson, because life is meant to be enjoyed.